Katie, Earth Bishop, back with us again. Katie's experience spans from shamanic wisdom, ancient alchemy, mediumship, Akashic record readings, and mystery school initiation. Her story is captured in her recently published book, Remember Your Torch. Katie, thanks for coming back on again.
Oh, thanks so much, Michael. It's great to be back. And thank you, Tracy Joe. Thanks for all that both of you do.
Oh yeah, it's been it's exciting times, but for a lot of people, it's kind of scary. There's a lot of fear out there, and you're going to help us with some of that, right?
Yeah, I am. I'm really grateful to be on today to share some of the information that I have and kind of help alleviate some of the fear of the unknown as we're going into uncharted territory at this time. And what I really want to do too is undo some of the damage that this New Age false light movement has caused, because that's causing a lot of the fear as well, because there's so much contradiction and confusion out there because there's so much false information, and it's coming from people who are presenting themselves as spiritual leaders or contactees or whatever it may be. So I want to, clear some of that information, and hopefully this will help guide people as we navigate this uncharted territory. And as always with my information and all the classes I teach, I just like to present the information. I share what I know. I hope it helps. That's my goal always, but I'm never forcing an agenda or anything like that. This is just, you take the information and you use it as you want to use it. And I think what I'm going to do is connect some really big dots for people tonight. Because what we're seeing, or what I'm seeing at least in my practice, are some really big shifts in patterns in the people I'm working with. And this is huge because it relates to where we are as a collective in our consciousness and as we're at the end of this cycle. And this specifically has to do with the Book of Enoch, or the 3 books of Enoch is what I should say. Genesis 6, that one phrase that always pulls people in. And also, if people are really interested in getting more insights into the underlying situation that's going on, the Book of Giants from the Dead Sea Scrolls is a really good read as well. So this is all connected. Believe it or not, this is also connected to the Dark Kabbalah, some of the Gnostic texts, and the Apocrypha texts. And this is really kind of at the crux of the foundation of what forms the deep state cabal and the Illuminati and a lot of these dark occult secret societies. So because this is a huge, massive topic, what I want to do is first talk about the patterns I'm seeing. I want to bring those forward because they're really important right now. And this is a good thing. These are positive patterns that I'm seeing. The first thing I'm seeing is that
you're going to expose a lot of stuff, but like you're going to speak about, we're waking up to a lot of this ourselves, and having someone like yourself and me, other truth seekers and speakers and so forth, we're able to see through this. We've been trying to point this out for quite some time, but we just saw Anthony Fauci expose himself massively in front of the whole world. But we're seeing the same thing with a lot of other people that we looked up: Tucker Carlson, Alex Jones, Megyn Kelly, Sean Ryan. All these people have exposed themselves for who they really are. And, I appreciate you're going into some serious depth with this, going back, for eons. So good job. Thank you.
Sure. I think this is important for people to understand because, like I said, it connects a lot of dots, and we're seeing the resurgence of this information come online because we are at the end of the cycle, because we are at this end of the age, and so we're going to start getting answers. And it's important for us to understand what our options are moving forward, or how to move forward. Right? What does that path look like? So one of the things I'm seeing that's been wonderful in my practice is that I'm having traditional psychotherapists send me clients because they reach a point with someone and they realize, hey, something spirituals going on. There's something I can't put my finger on, and I need to send them to someone who's doing this kind of spiritual entity attachment release. And I think the fact that we're forming this bridge and this relationship with traditional psychotherapy and like what's really, this dark medical mafia system, and they're starting to communicate with me and we're working together. I see that as a huge shift in our consciousness and a big step that we have to take forward. And the therapists that have been contacting me are all on board with this. I mean, they'll send me a client that they've been working on for years and they can't get past a certain block. And then they have one session with me and we've removed the entity. And the therapist is like, what in the world are you doing? I've been working with this person for so long and we couldn't get past this. And I tell them, a lot of the core issues that people are dealing with are an underlying entity attachment issue. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that and what that looks like. And then what I'm also seeing, and this is brand new over the last few months, and this has been really fascinating, and it really takes a lot for me to get my attention, because I've seen it all. I've been through a lot. I wrote my book about all my experiences. But what's happening is just over the last 2 months, as I start getting into sacred space with someone to do any kind of healing work, their entities just start popping out and we're not even trying to do anything. It has been wild to experience and to see, and it's thrown people off. It's like, oh my God, I didn't know I had this massive demonic in me, and it's just coming out. We're not even trying to remove them. We literally just get into sacred space and they're coming out. Now, I see this as a wonderful sign, because that means that our collective consciousness is rising and people are healing to the effect that all these entities need is a space to release now, because our frequency is so high and they can't hold on any longer. Now, this doesn't apply to every single session, and there's a lot of sessions where there's still a little bit of a battle and there's a lot more work to do in facing the shadow, but this is new, this new trend. And so again, I see this as a really good sign, and that actually ties into the underlying circumstances of the Book of Enoch and what's going on with that group that we call the fallen angels and the Nephilim and their children. That is directly tied to this, and I'll talk a little bit more about that as we go along. But what I first want to do is maybe give a little bit of background about entities in the unseen realm that we're dealing with, because a lot of people don't know and won't understand the terminology. And I also want to take the stigma out of it, because, when we start talking about entities and disembodied spirits and demonics, people get really scared because they think they're calling them in. And the truth is, you're interacting with them all the time. You just don't know it. And they don't want you to know it. That's the way they operate. We have way more disembodied spirits in this realm than we do actual physical human incarnate souls. Okay, so I'm talking billions, and there's all different kinds. They're not all demons, right? So that's why it's important to kind of understand what's going on in this unseen realm that is always there. It's just outside of our visible light spectrum. So, what happens is the darkness, it thrives in ignorance, right? So when we ignore them, we're giving them power. But when we actually shine this light of truth on what they are, then we reclaim all of our power and all of the fear goes away. So I just want to share some information on understanding how they operate, because once you understand that, you'll be able to see it. And you'll be able to see it now more than ever, again, because we're in this rising, we're coming up into this band of consciousness where you're gonna be able to almost physically see it with your 3D eyes, and a lot of people are experiencing that right now. So when I'm talking about entities or disembodied spirits, most people directly start thinking demons. And while that is true, and the traditional definition of demons are, when you really go to the text, and this is again just the traditional definition of a demon, that the group of the fallen angels that came down and mated with women, it was their children that became the Nephilim, and then those bodies of the Nephilim, when they deceased, their souls were not able to ascend or go to another stage of evolution. So they were trapped in our system as dark spirits. Now, that's the traditional understanding of where the demonic realm comes from, okay? And there's a lot more to this. I'm just giving you the basic definitions. There's lots of different kinds of entities, and some can act demonic, but not actually be, a disembodied Nephilim. Okay, so that's where there's a lot of confusion with this. What I see the most are actually earthbound spirits, and these are disincarnate human souls. They're people who have passed on. It's almost like they're ghosts, and they didn't go through the false light matrix system. They didn't reincarnate, or they didn't ascend to their next stage of evolution. And so they're kind of stuck without a body on this plane, and they're looking for light. They're looking for soulful beings to attach to. And so I see a lot of that. It's very, very common for people to have an attachment that's an earthbound spirit. And they're not malevolent, but they are sucking your energy. They are influencing you. And most people have absolutely no idea that they're there. We also have things like egregores out there. I'm hoping that there's going to be a lot more information coming forward about how egregores work, because they're parasitic thought forms and they can really strongly influence people. And the dark occult uses them all the time. Religions, institutions, even sports teams all have egregores. That's like your team spirit or your school spirit or whatever. So I won't get in too much detail of that, but those are out there, as well as archons and alien ET interference. And then you've got things like voice to skull and dues and remote frequency technology and implants and artificial telepathy. And that's like a whole different ball game. That's like a whole different animal on how you deal with that. But I want to bring all of these into the context, because all of these things are unseen, right? We can't see them, but they are all there. So the commonality that they all have.
I've never heard this description before. It's so makes so much sense that once the Nephilim came in, you would think they would leave. It's like they had their fun, but yeah, they're trapped in here. Wow, that's amazing. That's the way a lot of these demonic forces and so forth, until they're expelled, they're trapped within this consciousness. Maybe they never leave. We just rise above them, right? How does that work?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's okay. That's a brilliant question. So that's exactly what we're experiencing right now. And that's why I kind of reference Enoch and the Book of Giants to really understand what's happening. Because when those souls came in, we all come in from outside of this realm with a certain mission or thought, or we're programmed a certain way. And they were not able to leave, and it wasn't really their choice. And they're not human souls, so they're not going to be going where we go when we ascend. It's two different paths, and they have not been allowed to leave or be removed, and it's caused so much chaos and so much suffering and so much heartache for so many people on this planet right now, because they don't understand. They know there's something wrong with them, but they can't figure it out because it's not seen. And the church and our schools, no one talks about this and no one teaches about this. And again, that just gives them more power, because they operate by deception and they operate through false light. And it's just, a smorgasbord of false light out there right now. That's mostly what you see versus truth. And the dark occult, the cabal, the deep state, the Illuminati, they know how to work with these forces, okay? This is like the 72 archetypes when you start studying the Kabbalah. So they know how to call them in. They know how to summon them. They know how to get them to do things for them. They know how to manipulate people. And they know how to gain power from them. This all goes back even to, the Solomon's Temple and the building of the temple. And there's so much to this. And for people who are really interested in this, I have so many classes on my website where I go into this in more detail, because part of the problem is they've conflated all of the information and all of the characters and Satan and Lucifer and Azazel and Semyaza and the Apkallu and the Fallen. And we don't even understand really the terminology that's being used, because it's not being used in the right way for what it actually means. So my point is, the fact that they're popping out and they're leaving and they're moving is a wonderful sign that a way has been shown to them or paved for them to start their rehabilitation process. That's how I'm seeing this. This is how I'm intuiting that, because again, this is new and we are at the end of the age, and this would be the time when they would be leaving. That doesn't mean they're all leaving, and that doesn't mean they're all going willingly, but it is happening. I'm seeing it, I'm experiencing it, and I have so many clients that are having amazing experiences with this, lifting these things off and getting their lives back and feeling more like themselves. And it's being done in a way that it's different than it was before. Something shifted, something changed, something's been opened up for them. So that's kind of why I want to bring some of this information forward. And a lot of people wonder, well, how do they get in, or how do they attach to someone, and that's just such a really, really important point, because they can attach in all kinds of different ways. And one of them is severe trauma. Unfortunately, when you have severe trauma, the soul can leave and something else can come in and start working through the person. And then the other way, believe it or not, is our consent. And it's the where we put our attention and our focus and our actions. That's all of our energetic currency. And so these things kind of weasel their way in. They know you better than you know yourself, and they'll kind of trick you into doing things that maybe you normally wouldn't do, or making decisions little by little. And before you know it, you've given your consent away to one of these entities that can control. So it's important for people to know that, Now, what's also important is to understand that the way they operate, because one of the things that we're never taught is our cosmic and natural law, which actually grants us sovereignty over our souls to protect us from entities. And we don't even know that we have this. And like I said before, they gain our permission through deception, through like hiding, acting like false light. So it's all about understanding that, you are actually in control of this, and you have the ability to remove these things. And when you face them, and we go through like a redemption process of owning your actions and looking back at your, where you've acted in your shadow self, I would say, that's where the power is, and that's when they get released. And when you understand the way occult language works, and you understand the law of domain, you can even see that the word demon and domain have the same structure, really. It's all about authority, it's all about domain. And this is where, the authority we see going to Christ, Yeshua, Jesus, Isa, whatever name people want to use for him, but he earned what is called the exousia for the authority in this realm. And that's why, his presence works when you need help with shifting some of these dark spirits out. I hope, I know I'm saying a lot, but this is what's going on. And there are so many people that suffer from closet addictions, and they can't break free, and they can't break the loop. And it's because there's usually an entity attached. And once they're able to identify that and do some clearing and do some shadow work, it makes the process so much smoother. But we're in a world right now where people are just so overconsumed with addictions and food and alcohol and pornography, and people are so disassociated. Disassociation is another entry point. It's a really important entry point. When we're zoning out on social media or Netflix, you're opening yourself up to that kind of programming. And all of the websites are actually domains, right? So something can attach through, dark programming that you're actually watching through a screen. Wow. Yeah. And self-sabotage is another, symptom of this. People who are always really almost like their own worst enemy. There's usually, it's not them, it's not their true self that's doing that to them. It's it's something else outside of them. And what I'm seeing really,
It's like you froze up a little bit, Katie.
and I think you cut out. Am I still there?
You're back now. Yeah, you were out a little. Yeah.
Okay.
This is very relevant subject matter, and it seems to be, once we hit on subjects like this, there's a little bit of interference. But yeah, you're good now. Thanks. And what you're sharing is just phenomenal. I mean, your view of the bigger picture and being able to bring it in so it's understandable is, I've never seen anybody, explain it like you are right now. It's very, very good. Good job. Wow.
Thanks. I'm doing my best, and I think it's really important for us to understand the bigger picture, because that takes away the fear of the unknown. When you understand the bigger picture, you can kind of like reverse engineer the situation and see what is really happening. And one of the things I was about to say with the pride and the ego, and that I'm just seeing this spread like a disease in the spiritual community or galactic community, or I don't know whatever you want to call it, but people are saying, oh, I was so and so in a past life and I was so wonderful. And you've got a lot of these like BS New Agers reading Akashic records and saying, oh, you were Alexander the Great or Isis or whatever it may be. And you know what, that is causing a lot of problems and a lot of false light, and it's creating these weird false identities for people. And the real way to use the Akashic records, first of all, there's a false set of Akashic records that are totally digital, and they're designed to feed the ego.
No kidding. Wow.
Yes, and that's what most of these false light people.
That would be completely sacrosanct, and there's no way that could be compromised. But it makes sense. Of course, it would be.
Of course. I want people to understand, you hold everything within your soul. Your soul is the library of all your experiences. And so when I go into a reading for someone, I'm not looking for the past lives where they were so amazing. I'm doing the opposite. I'm looking for the lives where they had the most trauma, or they had a lifetime where they actually weren't a very good person, because those are the lifetimes we need to look at, because if they were unhealed, those patterns will play out in your life today. So that's, the catalyst. That's how we orchestrate change to happen. That's how we go through this alchemical process of the soul. It's actually looking at the really, really difficult lifetimes that you've had, and some of the challenges that you've been through, and maybe some of the dark side that you may have played in past lives, to use those to see in your life now these patterns and how they're repeating themselves, and then stop that karma, rise above it. So really that's the way to use them, not to inflate the ego, not to be bragging about who you were in past lives. And a lot of this V2K technology is doing that to people. It's not all negative stuff they're beaming into people. They're inflating people's egos and making them think they're like a contactee or something like that, or they've got like this big galactic role to play. And a lot of it is just the CIA. And I know you know that, but I want to make sure your audience knows that as well. It's very, very sophisticated remote frequency technology that's being used out there. As well as implants that are being used, and they create all kinds of confusion for people. And I write a lot about that in my book, and what to look for in the signs, and how to compare and contrast a positive experience or what might be a false light experience. So one of the things with, when I was talking earlier about these patterns and working with traditional therapists and psychotherapists, is when you have something on you, even if it's not a demonic, it could be just an earthbound, you're going to feel things like depression and anxiety and strange impulses. And you might feel constantly drained, or you might have brain fog, or you might feel really blocked, or you might feel like you're like watching your life in third person, like you're not fully present and you can't be fully present, or you might feel like you have some kind of impulse or uncontrollable addiction and you just can't get a hold of it. It's like something takes you over. I see a lot of people have that with like binge eating at night, and they're just like, I don't know why, but I have to eat at night and I can't control it. And usually there's an earthbound spirit there because they love to eat. They love anything that has kind of like physicality associated with it. And I see these entities acting up more at night, like more when the sun goes down. It's kind of like they really come online that much stronger. So I wanted to address that. And I also, I wanted to address something that's so near and dear to my heart with this. This is how veterans get affected. And I'm so sorry. I don't mean to be so emotional, but
It's okay.
I've dealt with some veterans that have had extreme moral trauma and extreme experimentation done on them, and they end up coming back from deployments after giving their lives, and they're in a situation where it was kill or be killed, and they know something jumped on them after they had to take someone out, or they know they came back with something and they weren't the same. And so not only are they coming home with all of this PTSD and a horrible VA system, and they've been experimented on, and so many of them have voiced a skull. Now they've got an entity. And I've worked with a lot of them and their families, and it's destroyed families. And it's been one of the most painful things to have to witness and know that this goes on. And so anyways, our veterans deserve so much more than this, and you know this, Michael. So if you are someone out there struggling with this, I have free sessions on my homepage. There's a pro bono session at the very bottom of my homepage you can sign up for. And because it's the veterans and the victims of satanic ritual abuse that I like to try to reserve those spots for. So please just, honor that. I don't want to just give, free spots to people who can afford a session. But those are the people that need it the most, that are the most destitute, that have, just can't come back. So I want to put that out there. Like
Very
that.
generous. Thank you for that. For helping the veterans like that, because you're right. When you're overseas, you're exposed to a lot of dark stuff, and you see dark stuff, and it pulls your vibration down and makes you vulnerable to these lower consciousness vibrations that jump in and take over you. So you're right.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't understand it, but they know something happens. And when you combine that with the V2K and some of the experimentation that's been done in some of these programs, it's just been devastating and heartbreaking. And so I won't stay on that anymore, because it's very hard for me to even talk about. But I do have some sessions if you're someone that would like to get some help for that. And so anyways, moving on, another thing that I'm seeing that I would like to share with people about false light is a lot of practitioners out there are using what's called light language to heal people. Now, some of this is really genuine, and they're coming from a good place. But I want people to really, feel into your heart if it feels right for you, because what's happening is a lot of these people are channeling stuff and they don't understand where it's coming from. They're just bringing it out. And it's important to understand that the demonic realm loves to speak in ancient tongues. They love to speak in ancient Phoenician, ancient Akkadian, and they have all these curses and spells, and sometimes they'll weave them into when people are speaking light language. And I've seen people do this, and I've had people come to me after having a session. They're like, something weird happened to me when someone spoke light language to me, and then we go and look into it, and it was a demonic entity. So I'm not saying all light language is wrong. I'm not saying it's bad, but I'm saying there is a piece of this that people could be manipulated when they're doing this. So I would use extreme caution I'm someone that would not accept someone speaking light language into me unless they knew what it meant and they could tell me exactly where it's coming from. So just another thing to be aware of, and I'm not trying to scare everyone. I feel like I just got really dark, and I'm not trying to do that whatsoever. I'm trying to take all the fear away.
Awareness is very important, and what there is, like you're talking about, there is light. You are for those, and this conversation can help people become aware of this stuff, because a lot of people just don't understand, and that's part of getting to the point where you can start to take down these forces that are aligned against us. Is to understand who they are, and like you're talking about in the beginning, once you understand that, you empower yourself, and you stop them from coming in, and you can help others to do the same. So yeah, very, very powerful. Good.
Yeah, and that's a really big piece. I mean, part of this healing process and letting go of the shadow self and some of these, entity attachments, the strongest piece is actually pulling forward your true self, who you are as a soul, that part of you that is constant from lifetime to lifetime, that part of you that is always connected to pure source love energy, right? When you bring that forward, they can't stay in that space anymore. So that's why I see a lot of these entities almost clearing themselves as soon as we open the space. They're like ready to go because the person is ready to embody themselves. And the number one thing I hear from people after clearing is they're like, oh my God, I feel more like myself. I feel more like myself. And it's sometimes people have been walking around with a disembodied spirit for like 20 years, and it's very emotional for them. They're like, I always knew something was wrong. I always knew I had a block, but I had absolutely no idea how to fix it. Or I've been in therapy for 10 years and just going in loops, going in circles, never getting the results I want. And it's because they're never getting to the bottom or the core of the issue where there's some kind of attachment. And everyone can do this work. I'm not special. I guide people through the process. I teach the process and I hold the safe space for it to happen. But everyone needs to know that they have this power to do it as well. And I have an online workshop on my website that has like a manual with it, and it has like instructions, and it has 4 different kinds of processes that you can use. So just educating yourself on this and knowing that, you don't even have to book a session with me. You can just learn about it, read about it, and empower yourself. This doesn't take, a $500 fancy crystal ceremony with like sage and, all kinds of stuff. This is something you just do in sacred space on your own. It's a reclamation of your own soul sovereignty, and you can do this at any time. So anyways, I hope this is helping, and I know your audience is very astute and very well aware of everything going on, but I felt like because I'm seeing these patterns and I'm seeing these entities popping out, I really feel like we've reached a new level of the game, and I think what we're going to need is maybe some more people who would be interested in doing this kind of work, because there's going to be more people who are ready to start healing from trauma. And when you're dealing with people who have extreme sexual trauma, there are demons involved. There are definitely demons involved, and you need to understand this realm, and you need to understand it, but know how to help people. And I know there's people out there that have a calling for this, and we need more people like that who can help navigate, usher out the demonic soul of people who have been severely traumatized, and take that demonic spirit to the next stage of evolution. And so, like I said, I have a class online, I have an online workshop. If you're interested and you feel that calling within you, I really recommend that you take that class and then reach out to me, because there's more to it, and there's like another level that I want to bring forward. But we're going to need more people that know how to do this work and aren't afraid, and can hold that safe space for people to heal, and can hold that space when someone's going through healing of severe trauma. And it's not something you just kind of dip your toe into and do a little bit. You have to live a whole different lifestyle, because you will have dark forces constantly attacking you. So it's nothing to be fearful of. It's just, if this is a calling, take your time and reflect on it, and really make sure that, you're in a time in your life where you could take something like this on and really live. You just have to live the lifestyle. Otherwise, you could easily become compromised. But I can tell you, people are probably like, why in the world would you ever want to do that? But I can tell you the greatest gift of working in this field is, you get to give people their life back. And there's no amount of money or fame or fortune or material gain that is that fulfilling. There's nothing compares to that. Nothing compares to getting done with a clearing session with someone and have them look at you with tears, being like, oh my gosh, I've been wanting to feel myself for all these years and I finally do. You will never, ever feel just more soul fulfilled than being able to give that to someone. So I wanted to put that out there, because we're going to have a lot more people being ready to go through healing, and there's going to be demons coming out, and these demons are ready to go, because this, we're at the end of the age, and everyone has to go somewhere, because this false matrix system is collapsing, and we feel it and we see it and we're experiencing it collapsing. So all of this chaos right now, while it's really awful and confusing, it's a really good sign that the dark system is going away, right? It's just not, it can't tolerate the truth that's coming out. And we've been in the age of deception for so long, and it's crumbling. It's crumbling right and left, and people can't keep up with their lies. And there's so many distractions. So please be aware of that as well, because I feel like the distractions are just as dangerous as the lies. This is what we really need to be focused on in this time frame, is the way of soul sovereignty, the path of soul sovereignty, the path of actually taking your consciousness and living through the heart space. And you teach this, Michael, like always being in the vibration of love, and that can be a really hard path to walk, so but actually doing it and having the integrity to do it when other people around you aren't, or there's everything else is screaming at you to go a different direction, that's the work, that's the mission, right?
And eventually you see that is the most powerful thing you can do. And once you understand that and recognize that, you never go back to, well, occasionally anger comes in, but you recognize that right away and go back to love. So that's a challenge. I know in your work and my work is keeping people focused on love, and that's going to guide you, that's going to inspire you, and so forth. But it is certainly during, like we're talking about, this change of ages, going from a dark age into a golden age, that point where the transition happens is sometimes the most violent of the entire dark age.
It really is. But Michael, this is what we came here for. This is what your audience came here for. We came here to be at this time to be the light, to be the truth, to show the way. And guess what? The way is really simple. We just overcomplicate it, right? Yeah. The path is narrow because there's so many distractions. There's an unbelievable amount of distractions. And when you start seeing them for what they are and cutting them out in your life and really being more focused on, where are the places in my life where I'm not operating from my heart space? Where am I getting triggered? Why is this bothering me? Where am I not present? This is a huge problem. We're so easily disassociated and not present in the moment, and we create from the present. That's really where we are most powerful, is when we are fully embodied and fully present in everything that we're doing. So all of these simple things, they sound so they sound too easy, but if everyone was doing these things, we wouldn't have all these problems, right? So it's reminding everyone to come back to your center, to come back to your heart space, to come back to humility. I know that sounds so basic and boring and simple, but it really is the truth. because what we're dealing with, as I mentioned before, is this overinflation of pride and ego and false identities playing out online. And there's rewards for that online because, the dark programming, props up the false light, not the truther, the real truthers, right? So, being aware of that and being aware of, a lot of, unfortunately, what's coming through healers and contactees that think that they're in contact with something benevolent. They're not. So discernment is just of utmost importance. A lot of these speakers out there, quite honestly, they don't really care about humanity. They care about themselves. They care about, getting likes. They care about being at certain conferences. They care about all of the ego stuff. And you can see that quite clearly. And so if you see that in someone, it's a really big red flag. And it doesn't mean that all their information is false, but you might want to put like a really big filter on what you're watching and what you're allowing into your field, because we are receivers and we are always receiving information. And so being aware of that, that's how the dark side works too. They put stuff into our subconscious all of the time. And then we don't know it. And we kind of are playing and working, projecting through the subconscious. And we don't even know that we're perpetuating, our own reality system. And I will tell you that the demonic realm absolutely uses the subconscious as a tool to get into our system. They absolutely use it. And our subconscious is nothing to be ashamed of or to judge. It was actually created to be an efficiency processing system, because we're always, processing, over 40 million bits of data every second. So we need a subconscious to process information. But what happens is over time, the dark side will put dark things and dark programming into our subconscious, and then we think it's a part of us, and it's not. So part of this whole human experience, believe it or not, is experiencing that what you are not to understand who you are. It's seeing the contrast. And that's when you do the shadow work and you say, oh my gosh, I was acting out of jealousy when I did this, or I was acting out of my pride or my ego. And now I see that is not me. That was something that I chose to allow work through me. And I feel so much better now letting that go. So going into shadow work and looking at, the dark side without judgment, and actually doing it from a place of, I respect myself, and I want to be the best version of myself that I can be. So I'm going to look at these things that no longer serve me, and I'm going to let them go, and I'm going to admit to them, and I'm going to go through that process of redemption. That is the simple way. It's very simple.
That's one of the things when I stopped looking at the dark side and the dark entities as a threat, as evil. I just saw them for what they were, and from that point on, everything completely changed for me. There's been times where I've I wouldn't say confront, but I've looked at entities and they've taken a knee to me. It's like, wow, that was, I'm sure they're kind of like the same with you, because you're so bishop, you're a guardian, so that's your name. And they recognize you for the power that you have, and that's one of the things I believe is probably why you're so successful with helping people rid themselves of dark entities, because the entities recognize your power, and it's a lot easier for you to detach them from a beautiful soul that's trying to break free. And that's why they see you, these souls on some level, even though the dark side is trying to shadow them and control them, but they see you, and they approach your work as helping so many people, and now you're helping people become like you, which is, like you said, very, very important during this transition phase and for humanity.
Yeah. Thank you. It is a wild, interesting life to be working in this realm all of the time, and seeing things the way I do. And people probably are wondering, well, do you see them? And yes, I do. And I see them. I can explain how I see them, because I don't know anyone else that sees them the way I do. But actually, when I was really, really little, I could see dark spirits working through people, and people's faces would shift, and I could see the energy exchange happening, and it was terrifying and it was awful. And I was a very frightened, shy child. Now that ended up kind of evaporating and going away. I think just, growing up and being indoctrinated, and, you kind of lose those abilities or that sight. And then it didn't come back online again until I had that walk-in experience in 2011. And then I started seeing again, more in the astral plane. And so the way that the entities look to me is different based on what they are. So like when I'm looking at someone that has an earthbound spirit, that looks to me like a holographic overlay of someone. So I could be talking to a woman and it will look like there's a man with a beard, translucent, over her. And I'll know, okay, there's an earthbound, and this is where he's coming from. Now, with demonics, they look differently. They really hide. The only way I see them pop out of people is when someone's talking and they actually will speak about what the demonic is attached to. There's like a moment in time where it looks like time freezes, and I can see the entity almost pop out and then pop back in. And I know that sounds really weird, but it really helps me when I'm working with people to be like, boom, all right, got it. That's what it's attached to. That's what it is. And I'll have a better idea on what kind of protocols we need to do to clear it. So I know that probably sounds really weird, but that's how I see them, and that's how I experience them. And another thing with working in this realm, and I was talking about the law of dominion before, one of the things with these technologies and the voice to skull that is so hard to free people from is the fact that it doesn't apply to the law of dominion. So this is human technology targeting another human, right? So there's no law of dominion. And so I can't do anything about that. All I can do is help the person, navigate through it and change their lifestyle. I would rather face off with a giant Nephilim demon, because they will abide by the law of dominion. They know the laws, and they know I know the laws. And so, that is much easier for me, believe it or not. I know that sounds crazy. I'd rather deal with that than the technology piece. I can't really do anything about that, because it's another human, and it's violating all the free will laws. And I don't know what the solution is. I would think that because there's these frequencies that are impacting people in a negative way, there's got to be a reversal. And I don't know how we get that going, but so many people are suffering, and children are being attacked by this as well. So there's got to be a push for this to get changed, because this is part of the overarching mind control system that affects everyone to some degree or another, right? And I do see some of this information coming more and more forward to the forefront, and people talking about their experiences, and people who shared their stories with Voice to Skull previously were called nutcases, and they weren't believed. But now it's like, people believe them. The technology is proven. The patents are out there. I have I have a bunch of patents in my book. I list them here because they hide them. But they're out there. And so now people know these things are real, and a lot of people are experiencing it for themselves even. So this is a really key piece. And I work with a lot of people that suffer from this. And like I said, this is one of the most difficult things to work with, because there's no laws. It's not an entity. It's not attached to a soul. It's attached to a machine, right? So that's a completely different animal and how you're approaching that. But there are things that you can do to make your life easier, but it's very, very frustrating. It's been very debilitating for very many people. And like I said, there's got to be a reversal. There's got to be something done where we can start at least reversing this, or putting frequencies out there to intercept it or something. I mean, we have to have that technology. It has to exist. Maybe you know more about that, or maybe you can't say.
Yeah, I've had an experience with that. I think, from my own experience, just, because I do the love frequency, love vibration. I did that a lot and overseas. And I talk about how I was on the Pacific Crest Trail and a helicopter came and did a heart attack machine on me. And it didn't work. I felt the pain, I felt my heart seizing, but I was able to resist, and it did it over and over again. So that's a technology thing that's being resisted through your inner connection with Source, love, and that's what protected me and kept me alive, where most people don't survive that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. It is, again, like it's bringing that forward. Some people who are suffering from this so severely are so weak within themselves that it's really hard for them to pull that forward. Um, anyways, I do see this being a really big issue because a lot of people are controlled by it and they don't know it either.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, Mind Nexus is a good source for this because they also work with what's going on with the implant technology. A lot of people have implants, and maybe again, this can affects like this galactic influencer community as well, because many people have implants and they think they're talking to an angel or an ET or something, and they're talking to the CIA, or they're talking to a 3-letter agency, or even like a subcontractor, because the government agencies uses mostly private companies and subcontractors to do all the work, so it can't be really tracked or traced. So they don't even know who they're talking to, and of course the voice or the implant is acting like benevolent and maybe sharing lots of information, but it's a total manipulation, unfortunately. So that implant technology is affecting a lot of people as well. I had so many other things I wanted to share, and I'm sorry. I feel like I was kind of wandering all over the place. Hopefully,
No,
it
it's
came.
great. You came in with a huge plate of food. So we're trying to eat as much as we can, but there's a lot to share. And but I mean, I'm taking little bites of everything, so it's good. It's delicious. So keep going.
Okay, good. Well, I one of the things that I would like to put out there, as part of like, well, what do we do? What do we focus on? How do we get out of all of this enslavement that we've been in, and how do we walk this path to soul sovereignty? And it always starts with yourself. It always starts with yourself. You've got to learn what do you need to do for yourself to find that inner peace? And then it starts with your family. It starts with bringing that out in your family, healing your relationships with your family. This is where miracles happen. This is where things really start to shift. And I know this is hard, and we've all been through a lot with some of our families, especially if we're the black sheep, right? Or I'm a parent, and my ex-husband thinks I'm bonkers, right? And so we have children together, and so it can be very challenging, and I understand all of these challenges that people go through, but it starts with you, it starts with your family, it starts with the people around you, and then you start spreading that out like a spiral. And my advice is that we all really focus on being the best role models as a humanity right now, and not worrying so much about the soul family or the star family, because what we need to focus on is the human family. We need solid role models for our children. We need guides that are human right now for us to get through this process, because we really can't enter into that whole galactic scene until we know who we are as our own species, until we own that, until we're really looking out for each other, until we're really caring for each other, until we see all of our children as our own, right? And right now there's so much infighting, and we've got to get past it and see each other as fellow humans, right? And be role models. I asked my children the other night, I have teenage boys, and I said, who's a male role model for you that you would look up to and admire, because they are wise, and they are they have made a life for themselves, and that they treat women well, and they treat themselves with respect. And my kids were like, had no idea what to say. So this is where we need to go, is being role models for the human family.
Yeah.
That's what I think. That's my perspective.
Yeah, I totally agree. And you're doing that with your work, your book. Looks fantastic. So that's a good start, right? And then of course your website is a great place to go and explore. There's some free material in there that people can explore. And then if you want to go deeper, You definitely have sessions and so forth. So how would you go about teaching somebody this? Would you start them with some sessions, work your book? How would that start?
Yeah, so I would recommend that they start with the online workshop I have called The Unseen Realm. It's on my homepage, and I have a discount code they can use. It's Jaco, Jaco 25 in all caps. Get 25% off. It's 4 hours of everything you would want to know about the unseen realm and the architecture of the spiritual realm and how it's set up. And it comes with an instruction manual as well. So you would have everything there, and I would start there and see how the information resonates and reflect on it and see if this is the kind of work that you would really like to do. And then I would say email me, because I would want to do maybe some one-on-one training sessions, or I've had a lot of other people reach out to me, and I might put a group together. And I know there's a lot of other people doing this work as well. So maybe if another spiritual person resonates more with you, do that. But if you've had a calling for it, now is the time to start really getting educated, doing work on yourself as well. You need to be as strong and as clear in yourself first, because you can't hold that clarity or that safe space for anyone else unless you've really gone and taken out your own demons. And I write all about that in my book. I mean, I went through a lot, and I did a lot of training in this with all different kinds of methods. So, and I also have it in my workbook too. If you're more of a workbook person, Reignite Your Flame, there's processes through here, and then there's some processes you can do to help heal trauma and things like that. That's a little bit more for your own inner healing, but you have really got to be strong in yourself and clear with yourself and grounded in yourself to walk this path, so that you don't get compromised, and so that you're able to hold the space with people and be totally in your high heart, and to be able to live life that way with all these distractions that are always coming at us. It's not an easy path. I'm not going to say that it is, because you're always going to be getting attacked, and people are going to rip you apart, and people have made some really rude comments already just on this podcast, so you're going to get that. But I will tell you, it is so worth it. It's so worth it when you're helping people.
Yeah. I'm looking through your site, and I get some fascinating stuff here. The keys to the Cathars, the Holy Grail, Cathar codes, Magdalene mysteries, forbidden wisdom. So that's something you have available now. And boy, I'm actually going to definitely do this one, Mysteries of the Dragons, coming August 9th. So tell us a little, how do you tap into this?
Yeah. Well, so I'm a walk-in, and so this was part of my mission. It was to bring healing. It was to bring remembrance about the information and connecting the dots, because we have little bits and pieces of information, but we don't really have the truth behind it or how they're all connected. So that's my motivation. And I do a lot of research as well. And so on every class, I started with the sources and resources where I did pull information from, or things that resonated, or places you can go for more information, because I think that's really important. It's not information. I'm not channeling. I'm not like just pulling stuff out of the sky or anything like that. It's coming from what I walked in with, and it's coming from me filling in the gaps with some resources, and even like ancient texts, like some of the ones that I mentioned today. Well, those are relevant to what I'm talking about. So that's why I wanted to say them up front. You can go there for more information. You can never really cover everything in one class or one interview. So I'm always sharing where the information comes from. I think that's really important, because part of this false light is people are just channeling BS and selling it as truth. And we got to be really, really careful about that. And so, we do have a connection to the dragons, and dragons, in the Bible, there's some dark dragons, there's, mother dragons, there's Satan dragons. What are these? What is our connection? Why do we talk about dragons? There's clearly some kind of cover up that they don't want us to know about the dragons, right? And how did they play out in this whole construct? Because my big thing, and people who listen to me, I sound like a broken record, but I'm always talking about the construct of the reality system as a whole. our disclosure should be focused around the construct, because when you understand the bigger picture, then everything else falls into place, and you can kind of like reverse engineer things, and then you understand, and then you're not at the mercy of the controllers to get your information and hope that they disclose certain things. If you understand what they are from the get-go based on the construct, then everything kind of makes sense, and you can connect the dots yourself, right? So I'll be talking about that. And you mentioned Keys to the Cathars. I think that was one of my favorite classes ever. I love the information on the Cathars and the way they live their lives. And, there is a reason why the Roman Catholic Church hunted them down, murdered them, tortured them, and genocided 1 million men, women, and children who were completely innocent and living the most pure way of life. They were called the pure ones, the good men and good women of the earth. Their way of life, they were ascending. They knew the secrets of ascension. They knew the secrets of the Grail. They had this information, and that's why they were targeted. And I go through all of that information in the class, and it's really important. And I'll end on this. I was talking about I don't like sharing past lives, and I think it's egoic, but I will share one. And it was a very humble life that I had, and I'm sharing it because it's relevant to the information that I bring forward, and the way the way that I'm bringing this forward with the classes and the information. I'm hoping this might activate some people, because there's a lot of Cathars that were purposely reincarnate at this time. It goes back to the Laurel prophecy. We said we'd be reincarnate 700 years ago, back in 1321, and we're in that time frame. And my name is Catherine Bishop, and it means Cathar, bishop of the Cathars, guardians of the pure ones. So I did have a lifetime as that, and I'm just saying that to activate people. If this information resonates, I feel very connected to that information, and it's been very activating for a lot of people who watch that class. They watch it and they end up crying, and they're like, I feel like I got a soul retrieval. I feel like I got part of my soul back. It resonates. So not trying to say that any egoic way. It's just part of the mission and part of what I'm trying to bring back here for humanity.
Yeah, very good. And your walk-in story is fascinating. So I've read that, and someone had the question. Let me see if I can find it, because there's a lot of chat going on. How can you be sovereign and a walk-in?
How would they not? I guess I don't understand how they wouldn't. Why they would be separate?
Right. Because your walk-in is more advanced and was able to handle what you went through and helped you transition out of that pain and suffering that you had gone through. So, I mean, if you hadn't had a walk-in, you wouldn't be here.
Yeah. I mean, I chose this, right? So maybe that's the question. We're all sovereign. Walk-ins are sovereign just like everyone else. I don't know why there would be a difference, so I apologize. I don't understand the question, but I absolutely chose this. This was planned out generations in advance. This is the way the system works on the other side. It's you really have to almost like plead a case to bring information into, because it goes against not interference. I'm losing my words here, but you can't just come in with information from the outside. There has to be a reason for it, and you have to plead a case. And I came in with many walk-ins. We came in all at the same time to help raise the consciousness at the time of the time shift in 2012. So I'm one of many. I'm no one special. I'm just trying to bring everything I know forward, because that's what I love to do. And I hope it helps people. And if it doesn't, then just table it and move on with your life. But I hope this was helpful in some way, and I hope you find my classes helpful. And we're all sovereign. That's what's important. That's what I'm trying to teach today. You are protected by this law of dominion, and most people don't realize it, and they're giving their consent away without understanding. And so that's what I wanted to shed the light on. It's like, don't give your energetic consent away, your attention, your focus, your actions. That's your currency. That's the real currency. So, that's how they get you. That's when you give your consent away, and that's how you lose your sovereignty. So just be aware of that, right?
Yep. And on your website, the first page, earthbishop.com, you have a nice video where you explain a lot of this. So I would direct people there and probably give you more insight. You might have to listen to it a few times, but if you're kind of a little confused about what we're talking about here, but that should help a lot of people. And then, you have monthly group meetings and all kind of crazy stuff. So that could be very beneficial and helpful to a lot of people, I think, going forward.
Yeah, I do a free monthly Zoom meeting for people, and we have Q&A discussions, and we share experiences. A lot of us out there feel lonely going through this process, this awakening process, and don't have a lot of friends where we can share everything with, because people will think you're crazy or they won't believe you. And so that provides a safe, non-judgmental space. They're not recorded. The only ones I record are when I bring a guest on. So like next month, August 19th, Laura Eisenhower is going to join us. And what she'll do is she'll talk. And then what I like to do for everyone that attends is open up, give them access to ask direct questions to the guest. So like the second half of our talk will be just like a live Q&A, so people can ask questions. And that's, again, it's just a free meeting. I do it every month to bring people together and feel like you're not alone. And so that's called Chess Club. It's called Earth Bishop Chess Club. It's not political. I just use the chess analogy because my last name,
Love it. Very good. Yeah. So yeah, you're inspiring as always. The last show we had, and I looked at, you've done a few shows before we got together, and now I look at your list, and you've been on everybody's show now. That's anybody and everybody. So that's fantastic. So your information, your words getting out there, I think it's highly important during this time, this transition time. The information that you give freely, the information that you give for a very reasonable fee, from the books and everything else that you have is fantastic. So thanks so much, Katie. Amazing.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Michael. Thank you for having me on. Thank you for letting me share. Thank you for everyone listening, and know that you are sovereign. You already are. And let's focus on our human family. That's what I would say.
Beautiful. Thanks, Katie. Thanks, everybody. And we'll see you guys
Michael. Thanks, everyone.